we have an announcement. What is that announcement? Well, I'll let you know here right after this. Stick around. 1 minute. Be all right. Yes. Good morning. Sorry, I was almost late coming back in after the intro video. Intro videos are interesting. Some people use them, some people don't. I like using them because it gives me a minute to kind of gather my thoughts and get everything set up here. We have to make adjustments to the live feed. We have to do this to follow the rules. So we need to put this there, and then we also put this in here. Let's kind of keep the trolls at a minimum. There we go. If you got something to say, you need to be a subscriber. That's just how it is. But good morning. This is the 96th day of the year. Hope you are doing well. I know it's been super, super slow around my compound this week. The week has flown by. I have these grand plans to get all these things done. And, I have failed miserably, but yet here it is Friday. And probably because I haven't been dispatching anybody this week. I've helped a couple of people get loads or help them look for loads. I didn't actually book anything for them. Although I could have booked a load for someone yesterday, but they didn't want me to pull the trigger on it yet. So anyways, that's understandable. But when you find yourself in a bad market, you got to take what you can get and go. So hopefully you'll find something a little bit better, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Also, as you probably saw from the title, we have an announcement. So let me see if I can get this up here. So let's do this here. Oh, that's going to be bad. So, oh, crap, all right. We'll figure this out. I am an amateur at best, but we'll figure it out. So if I go to, this is what I need to do. So I hope you got your morning coffee. I got mine in my Snorelord mug because it keeps it warm and toasty for a while. And it's a Yeti-style mug, so it does a good job. Let's see, what else? Could have sworn I had the link in here, so It's hard to make an announcement when I don't have my act together here. Oops, that's the wrong email. Anybody else have 15 emails like I do? Let's see. Oh, maybe it's in this one. And then I have to email our guest. We'll be having a guest today, which is not. Here we go. No. Do. I am failing miserably. Maybe it's in this one. All right, so it's not that one either. My like address is empty. So let's see. I wonder why it's not that one. That's very strange. Let's see. I know, this is really riveting. I am failing miserably. There it is. Jeez. All right, we got it finally. Failure is in the hands of the beholder. It is. Let's talk about that for a minute, Sterling. So, and I'll get to the rest of the comments here in a second. My Instagram, it's weird. Twitter is where all my trash is. Twitter is all the crazy videos of the day and all the stuff that makes you feel really bad about society. And then my Instagram is more of the, like, there's some people I follow with workout routines. There's some people that do keto recipes. And then the motivational people, what they do is they play stock footage and they like, when you are working on yourself, you should do it on your own. That kind of stuff, right? And then a lot of it's got Joe Rogan talking behind, and while you're just watching stock footage of someone struggling through something, and that. I watch a lot of that crap on Instagram. And Facebook's all over the place. Facebook thinks that I'm getting ready to start a revolution, or I need a bunch of music gear, and so in Facebook you got to go into your profile and then hit your feeds and then hit your friends if you want to get rid of most of the trash, the Temus and the, I get ads like there's an ad floating around. Even though I've never ordered anything from Midway, there's an ad where it's got this not only a trench knife but a trench push dagger. I mean, it's like, and then it'll have like I think I've posted it too. Like they had all full on riot gear. It's like, man, what do you think I'm planning here, Facebook? But anyways, so my social media is all over the place, right? And Google can't quite figure me out. So it latches on to every little, browser, Google, whatever. So but anyways, so I now have, here's the thing. I have a morning show called Morning Coffee Live. Now, if you guys don't know the history, so back when I was still driving, I had a lot to say in my head because, I'm a narcissist and all that crap. So I had these morning coffee thoughts. They were recorded videos. I was in the truck, and they were just random thoughts. And that was back when I warned everybody for the first time that you needed to be physically, emotionally, mentally, financially fit for what was coming. And I've been correct so far. If you didn't have any of those things or were working on any of those things, it's been a real struggle for the last couple of years. And I thought, man, these are pretty good. So I started doing them live. Morning Coffee Live. That's why it's called Morning Coffee Live. It was Morning Coffee Thoughts and then Morning Coffee Live. And the Morning Coffee Thoughts did okay, number-wise, I guess. But the live started really kind of taking off. And when I got out of the truck, primarily, I've only been out of the truck 100%, like for last, since October. Being able to do a set schedule has helped build my channel, yada, yada. And so I thought, man, there's 2 endorsements I need. There's 2 things I need to be able to sell. Number 1 is beard oil. And number 2 is coffee, right? Wouldn't it be awesome to have coffee? Well, content creator coffee reached out and said, hey, let's do a coffee. And so boom, I have a coffee now. Here's the website. And I will put that in the chat. Paste. There you go. So check it out. And finally, yes, Jerome says finally. It's called Berserker's Brew. It's a blonde roast. Now, the cool thing about blonde roast is that it's milder. So if you don't like the taste of coffee or coffee is too bitter, it kind of calms that down a little bit. But it also has the most caffeine content because you're barely roasting the coffee beans. That's what a blonde roast is. Back when I used to drink Liberal Cootie Juice, Starbucks, their blonde roast was my favorite. So I thought, well, let's have my own blonde roast, and Berserker's Brew, look up the history of what a berserker is when it comes to the Vikings, and there you go. So you can get it in whole bean, you can get it in coarse, you get it in ground, and then you can get it in espresso. So I have ordered a couple of bags, and it should be here next couple of days. And there you go. So there you go. So when will it be available at Starbucks, Ratman? Never. Ratman's sitting there watching on X. So anyways, check it out. I hope you like it. Shannon's already bought a couple of bags, and I've bought a couple of bags, and I have to taste it, so a little bit premature on the announcement, but I'm pretty sure it'll be all right. So CDN, I see in here. Let me say hi to these people, and then I'll bring you in here. Greg Zimmer, good morning. Desiroki Pam, good morning. Randy Curry, good morning. Have you found the load yet, Randy? Anything better than the one that I pointed at you? Mr. Charles, good morning. TK, hey now. Sterling, Metalheads Unite, form of trucking enthusiasts. Jose, what's up? Sterling, give me a call today, man. I haven't talked to you in a while. See how you doing, man. Morning, getting a 10 now, delivering Kroger, Louisville, tonight, 11 p.m. Hoping everyone doing okay. Man, Kroger, that's rough. I don't think I've ever been to the Kroger in Louisville. If I did, it was a long time ago. I don't remember. Failure is in the hands of the beholder. So now I got to create a YouTube short with that. Failure is in the hands of the beholder. And you're going to go through life failing. That means you're growing. So there you go. Pale Rider needs to endorse my coffee. So Randy says, no failure, just lessons learned. What about the failure to learn your lesson? How about that? Not you, but just in general. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Jerome Jones, good morning. Finally, Ratman. Morning. Unloading in Houston, enjoying the warm weather. There you go. Have a quick question. Will you do how to negotiate with brokers video? Yes. That will, baby, yeah. I need to do that because that's the most requested thing. And I can't wait for everybody to tell me how wrong I am. It'll be awesome. Flatbed Trucker, good morning. DIY Semi, top of the morning to you. So, anyways, let me present this screen again. Oh, come on. Maybe. Look at this, DIY. You need a coffee line now, too. Berserker Brew. But that's the 1 pound. See, if you do the 12 ounces, it's a little bit cheaper. So, anyways, we'll see how long it takes to get to me. So, all right. So, let's get rid of that. And let's put this in here. So, we're going to bring our guest in. Copy. And there we go. Interesting you say that. DIY has his own line of meth in the works. Well, anything to burn those miles, right? Coffee is legal, though. Silly. All right, CDN, I sent you the link, so whenever you want to jump in. Like I said, my email has been diddly squat this week. And it's kind of, troubling. So, James G., good morning. Are you still looking for a driver, James? So, but yeah, my primary tab is empty. Usually I have about 4 or 5 emails. Now, I will say this. The other day I was in my Gmail account and I went to promotions, and that's where a lot of the broker loads went, like ATS, Warner, Load Smart. And the reason being is because I think that a lot of them are using this AI technology to send out email, or they're using MailChimp or whatever, and a lot of that's going to the spam folders. So now that just means another source that I have to look at. So as a dispatcher trying to book loads on the spot market, I am checking many, many, many sources versus just 2 load boards. So, Mr. Rob, how are you doing? No audio, sir. Man.
Rookie.
There you go.
Rookie. All right.
What's up, my friend?
Well, first off, congratulations on the coffee.
Thank you. You want some? Are you a coffee guy?
Oh, 100% a coffee guy.
Sweet.
Water, wine, working out, or coffee? It's water, coffee, working out, or wine. One of those is always going on.
There you go. You ever do it all at once?
Well, no. Yeah, actually, yeah. Coffee and water and working out. Yes.
No, I meant the wine. Are you at the gym with the wine glass going, yo?
Well, sometimes cycling, you throw in a beer here and there. It's part of the journey. It's part of the adventure. It's not. Nice. It's not a norm. It's not a norm.
So what did you see? What brings you on this morning?
I guess I sparred. Jeff's live feed the other day was excellent with Sandman, the Dean, Shannon, and Sage popped in there, and it was excellent. Unfortunately I was in the midst of I got kids and too many cars, so I got to be the tire guy. So I only carry 20 tires in my garage at any given time to switch between winter and summer. So I was busy. I changed 2 sets of tires, and then so anyways, I missed the live, and I was listening to the replay and started me thinking about things. And obviously Jeff, over the however many 20 plus years he's been doing, or 15 years on YouTube, he's been educating all kinds of different strategies from especially Landstar to Schneider to what he's doing now, and you've been doing it as well. Everyone's been doing their own shtick of, and DIY Semi has been providing information for years. But yet we still have a lot of people either coming into the industry without their eyes fully wide open. And one of the things I wanted to throw out that I don't think we've seen done before is SWOT and SWOT analysis for the different situations. And I think that's a starting point, because the SWOT analysis means strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you're a driver and you're thinking about buying a truck, leasing a truck, or you have a truck and you want to lease onto a company, or you want to go out and get your own MC authority, if you're unable to create a SWOT analysis, then maybe that's the first indicator to show you may not be ready. But if you are, then we'll dive a little bit deeper into it. But if you are ready for it and you do make a SWOT analysis, I believe the benefits will heed long-term success for your particular journey within the supply chain. I always like to use supply chain, right? Because we always get caught up, like, we're hearing about, running short, running this, which is fine. What you guys talk about, because when you have one truck, you only have one source of revenue, right? And I'm always interested to hear, where is the breaking point when there's a owner operator with one truck and then someone buys 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Each truck, the owners, if you, like, for example, if you had 5 trucks, I'm assuming that you would analyze each truck for their, the driver's ability to be efficient with fuel, wear and tear, et cetera, especially if they're, a W-2 employee that you're putting them in that truck and your company's purchased that truck. But there's a point in time where, like right now, right? Obviously, if a single owner operator breaks down, as Sage would say, and the turbo goes down, you could be down for 2-3 weeks and $20,000 in the hole. So, but when you have a bigger, like for example, with your company, with the company that you're at with Jeff, if you guys did break down, you are in a situation, not in every case, but you are in a better position, because you can, before you call a broker, let's say, one of your drivers calls Jeff or yourself and says, yep, I'm broke down, it's a doozy. And you're like, okay, well, and they're under a load. You guys can work your magic and formulate a plan, and then reach out to the broker, explain what's going on, and this is how we're going to recover it. And if you have no drivers in the area, you guys have enough knowledge to say, here's the situation. You look at the, what's the repair times? Can the driver rent a truck? There's 1,000 ways in fixing it. But when you truly have one truck, one MC, it's just more difficult. And there's a point in time where when you break down and there's a $10,000-$20,000 repair for that truck, it merges with all the other trucks. It doesn't become just the cost, right? There's that. So I don't know that part, but the part I want to address is helping drivers, brokers, people coming into the industry use this tool to help you better analyze. And heck, if you're a brand new class 1 driver and you're looking at companies, if you have, sometimes depending on your experience and where you live, you may not have that many, choices, because you're new and not a lot of carriers will take you on. So you got to go where you got to go to get some experience. And I'm sure you have lots of stories that way. But if you are in a situation where you're either thinking about buying a truck, so let's start there. And as a reminder, when we think about supply chain, the little story I'm thinking about is, tonight's Friday. So tonight, a lot of us, if you're at home, you might be sitting down with your significant other and friends or your kids. And let's say you're just going to sit around, make a bowl of popcorn and watch a movie. So let's just think about that. So you have a couch. Well, the wood inside that couch probably was shipped from Canada or United States from a plant where a truck picked it up, brought it to a facility where, it was processed. The plant was processed. There's a whole thing to get that wood into 2x4s. And then that 2x4s and wood gets shipped by flatbed to containers, where it's loaded into containers and shipped to overseas to the manufacturers, where they're going to use that wood to help make the frame of that coach. Oh, there's metal springs. And the metal was produced possibly in United States, and again shipped in containers overseas, and they assemble it to make that couch. And then the fabric wherever that came from, all had to come by truck to the manufacturer. Then they assemble everything, box it all up. Maybe, who knows, to make those boxes where the cardboard, the paper and stuff came from there. Maybe we shipped it from Canada, US over there. They produce everything, box it all up, ship it back to North America. And then it comes by ship, comes into a warehouse, gets offloaded, put onto trucks, delivered to various stores so that we can go ahead and buy it. And so we can enjoy that movie tonight, right? So just when you stop and think about the supply chain, all those moving parts. So what that does, in my mind, that creates that opportunity for all of us in the supply chain. Now it's the question of where do you fit within all those pieces, right? There's all the modes that you guys have been talking about from years, all the way from drayage to over-dimensional freight. And then there's short, long haul. And I believe that there's revenue strategies, and then there's supply chain strategy. Revenue strategy would fall under that of you have a truck and you're trying to maximize the revenue, and what formula of mileage areas works best for your truck. And where this comes in ties right back to the SWOT analysis. So we look at strengths. So if let's just focus on, you pick, because I've been talking for a bit here, you pick, what would you rather focus on? And we can just kind of go through a SWOT analysis. And you know what, geez, it would even be cool to have someone else that has, additional insights to create a little round table for it if you wanted to. But someone who's, say, currently a company driver looking to buy a truck to either get their own authority or become an owner operator, but they want their own truck. Or do you want to focus on someone who has a truck and looking to get their leased onto a carrier like a Schneider or Landstar, but looking to get into the spot market? What scenario do you think that would be most pertinent at this time?
Scenario in like who would be,
well, where we can just do, because we can apply the SWOT analysis concept to anything. So I just wanted to, based on your audience, who's in the audience, what scenario would the audience benefit the most from to review how a SWOT analysis could help someone make a decision in the supply chain or their trucking business?
Well, I mean, first it's mindset. I know company drivers that have the better mindsets than a lot of owner operators. And then I know owner operators that have mindsets of bad company drivers, as far as like, I won't do this, I won't do this, I won't do this. And so it's the ability to be teachable, and Jojo McBookster, who's, obviously being a smart aleck, how are you going to maximize $1.20 a mile? That's something that these people need to, there was a time where you could buy a $30,000 truck and make it work, and you'd be making more money than a company driver. But those days are coming to an end simply because of the costs. And the rates will fluctuate. The market fluctuates, but are you like water? Can you bend and adjust and adapt and overcome? That's kind of what I look at. There are people that, if they have, see, here's the thing with the trucking industry. There are carriers that want to take advantage of the fact that people live in debt, have bad credit. It's kind of like these car lots around my town that they'll sell you a $4,000 car for $10,000 because they're not looking at your credit. They're taking a bigger risk on you, and it's a way to build your credit. And a lot of truck leasing places, they take advantage of that. They some call it predatory, but there's a hand up and a hand out, kind of a deal. But 99% of the time, when someone decides to buy a truck, they're not doing a business plan. They don't know what they're getting into. They can watch all the YouTube videos they want, and they could be more prepared. But until you're actually in the trenches fighting, you don't know what you're getting into. And so You have to have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. You got to have the ability to, there's going to be a video coming soon. The 7 things that you need to ask yourself as an owner, before you become an owner operator. And there's so many different factors, and there's a service on each of these factors that will take advantage of it. There are people that have literally gone from Schneider and Landstar that entered the spot market and literally don't like talking to brokers.
So I was going to say that the title of that could actually be, the title of that could be 7 Habits of Highly Successful Owner Operators.
Mm-hmm.
Something to that effect.
And so, and that's the insanity of it, is that there are people that, like these people screaming for broker transparency. I get it. You're angry because you think the brokers take too much money. And I know it's a sore spot with you and Sage, but here's the deal. If I'm at a convenience store and I don't want to pay $2 for, sparkling water, then I just don't buy it unless it's my only option. And if that convenience store is my only option, well, I've made some bad choices. I didn't prepare, and maybe I just need to use the tap. You know what I mean? It's when people can't play the game, they scream that the rules of the game are unfair. It's that simple philosophy. And so when I talk to a driver, like when someone talks to me about wanting me to dispatch them, or if they call me for a consultation and say, hey, what should I do? I'm doing an interview process that, I'm getting to know them. I'm getting to know their quirks. I'm getting to know where their weaknesses are. And are they humble about it? If, a lot of times I get these drivers, I've been driving for 25 years and I know everything there is. I'm like, okay, but that does not mean you're going to be a good owner operator. It just means that you're set in your ways and you're good at what you do and you know the roads better, but it doesn't necessarily equate to being a great owner operator. I was humbled that way. When I bought my first truck, I thought, man, I could dispatch myself. My dispatcher doesn't know what he's doing. Well, guess what? I learned very quickly when I was at Landstar that self-dispatch is not as easy as you think, especially to make it profitable. And so a lot of people think, well, I choose where I go, I choose my own freight, and that means I can do what I want. But that's true. But if you don't know, if you can't afford the learning curve, which is what most people can't, and you don't have the right mindset and you don't know how to talk to people, why in the hell would you want to rely on brokered freight in the spot market if you don't know how to talk to people, if you don't know how to do sales, if you're only wanting to run a small area? Someone asked me, what would I be doing if I still had my truck right now? I'd be going anywhere I could to make it profitable, whether that meant out west, whether that meant up in the Northeast, whether that meant down in Georgia. I'd be beyond my normal running radius. Because that's what this market is calling for right now.
The whole point is, unfortunately, life is hard in all aspects. I mean, I always like to use musicians because I appreciate musicians and how difficult it is. So it's one thing that, there's a lot of people out there that may, play a few songs on a guitar, but to actually be like where you were in a band. So the first part is, it's one thing to come up with a riff, right? That's one step. Now you got to come up with the chorus. Now you got to tie in lyrics to this. Now you got to tie in all the other instruments of your band and formulate this into, and I use the word formulate, and it becomes, this mixture to turn into a song, because you start out with a song, and I'm sure that you've been there because you've written original work and you've also done covers, but it's hard. Like, yeah, some artists, I've been there when you've been doing it long enough, they'll say, yeah, we wrote this on a napkin one day. We're just like, this idea popped in my head and I just wrote it down. And all of a sudden my guitarist just started playing this riff and I threw these lyrics on top. And it's like, wow, that became one of our big hits. Yeah. Does that happen? Sure. No different than you buy a truck and you land a contract that keeps you going really well. But the point is, it's hard. It's not easy, right? Like learning how to play guitar is hard. So if you're a company driver, and I like to use, because I don't see a lot of, most of the YouTube truckers that are out there nowadays tend to be a lot of owner operators. You don't see a lot of just a class 1 driver working for a company. But there's one girl, the one lady, I should say, that Jenna. I don't know her last name or anything. I just see her videos from time to time, but her name was Jenna. She's got really short blonde hair, and she was one time she was someone's feed like a couple 3 years ago, and so her dad was a driver, and she got her class 1. And if anyone's thinking about becoming a class 1 driver, and she's up in the Chicago, Illinois area, I don't know the exact area, but she's up there. She has been through, I'm sure, 3 or 4 companies in 1 year. So she's a class 1 driver working for companies, but go look at her journey. Watch her. If you actually watch her videos, in some cases, in majority of the cases, it was issues that you think owner operator and working on the spot market with brokers is hard. Try be a company driver in 2024 and dealing with dispatchers. You think if you can manage that successfully, that's a pretty good indication that you might be okay in the spot market. But if you're a class 1 driver bouncing from company to company, looking for greener pastures, thinking this will be better, but you haven't actually, like you talked about that. You've had your struggles with dispatchers over the years. And if you can't overcome that, how are you going to ever overcome a broker? And that's the whole point. If you're a class 1 driver, in my mind, your first phase is master the driving, backing up, we won't get into the weeds of that, but just the idea is if you're a van driver, flatbed, or RGN driver, whatever type of your dump truck, doesn't matter. Whatever motor truck you're doing, master it. Use that initial years, 1, 2, 3 years, and get good at it, really good at it, so that you're confident. That becomes second nature. Then, as you're working with companies, open your eyes. Don't just sit there behind the steering wheel and you get a message on a text message, or you get a Qualcomm message that tells you go pick up here and deliver there, and you don't talk to people, and you like that. Oh, I get to go home. I just tell them I want home time. It's real nice. It's comfortable. But if your goal, that's fine. If you're comfortable being a class 1 driver and that's what you like, great. But the point around this topic is those that want to venture out to buying a truck or leasing onto a truck, that's fine. But we want to open your eyes a bit more. And because number one, this is where the SWOT analysis will kick in. So when we talk about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you're a company driver versus, just because you're a company driver and you've been there for say 8-10 years, it doesn't mean, look at how many companies have closed their doors in the last 5-10 years. I did a video at the beginning of 2024, how to survive 2024. And I showed a statistic on my video, and the first screen, that video I showed you, you wouldn't know until I revealed that it was actually a statistic on the number of trucking companies that closed in 2008. So the point is, truck businesses closing is not new. It's been around for a lot of years, and you can track it year by year how many trucking companies close. Now we're seeing brokerages are now closing. So here's what it really comes down to is this SWOT analysis, is that if you're sitting in the truck thinking, yeah, I'm tired of this dispatcher, I'm tired of doing the same runs. I hear all this great, I talk to these guys, look, they got their truck, they get to run the spot market, they can choose where they run and all these great things. Okay, that's good. So let's put that down. First off, what are your strengths as a driver? You got to be able to list that to yourself, right? What are your strengths? Is it customer service? Okay, so you're saying, yeah, whenever I go to a dock, I'm always hole shotting. I'm watching these guys pulling forward, backing up. Me, I come in there, I know what to do. Okay, so I plan my trips. I know exactly. I'm always parked within 10 miles of the shipper. I'm always calling ahead. I do all these things that no other drivers are doing. Okay, so you got communication skills. You got backing up skills. Are you professional? How are you with interactions? How many, when something's gone bad, where the shippers, unfortunately, sometimes people, DOT officers through to shippers, consignees, brokers, dispatchers, we've all come across where someone comes to you, even within your own company, and they're like, you greet that person, and all you get is like, yeah, no, that, like someone who doesn't really speak, they're just grumpy, they hate their life, but they're doing this job, they've been doing it for 20 years. We've all come across those in different companies, right? You come to a shipper, right? So Go ahead.
I've seen whole entire trucking companies that way.
Yeah. So the point
Everybody's
is,
disgruntled. Go ahead.
but when you get to those situations, just like, okay, so you're a driver for a company, and though I think I've talked about this before, but this is what it takes. We have to repeat the same messages over and over and over the years, and then hopefully people get it. But when a situation happens and you're a company driver, and let's say the shipper's irate or there's a problem, do you just quickly call your dispatch right away? Hey, there's a problem here. You got to fix this. If that is you, you are not ready to go buy a truck or lease a truck. Be a company driver. It's good. Just, you're not ready. If you can't, when there's a situation happens, let's say a driver is about to hit you, or you got into a conflict with a driver and, they said something and you couldn't keep your head cool. So whatever the situation is, my experience, at least from, I guess I can say, I'll give my sales experience, is that whenever I've come, and I guess I can say this because I've always had success with it. If I had a hurdle, let's just say I went to a customer's place and I'm selling a product, and I realized the customer didn't want to buy it. But for me to get that to get that sale, I have to do the following. And I present it. So I look at it with, okay, so we're going to have to spend some money, whether that's donating free product or giving an offer where they buy so many, get so many free. So I come up with a plan. Then I think about it. What's the benefits? So what's the strengths of me doing that for our company? What's the strengths for our overall picture? And then we look at the weakness, and then I look at the big picture. So we start, okay, I'll have a gain right now with the sale of this if I do this, but how is that going to help me long-term? And whenever I've been able to present that, I come back to my office, see my sales manager, and say, this location here didn't want to take the deal, but this is what I want to present. And when I present this, I want to offer this deal to get in exchange. I'm expecting the customer to provide this, and it's going to cost this much, but I'm going to increase my revenue by the sales by this much, and so forth and so forth. And I present a little plan, and 9 times out of 10, I've always received approval from sales managers or upper management, because I didn't just say, John didn't want to buy from me today. And then I sat there. But instead I said, hey, you know what? John didn't want to buy. This is the deal. Our competitor's doing this. So for me to be competitive, I'm seeing that the sales rep in my zone is very aggressive. So this is what I'm gonna have to do as a strategy to overcome this and be able to present it. So if you're not that person, like when you're looking at your truck, if you're driving a company truck, if you're treating it as if it's your own and working on it, that is an indication you are ready. If you're thinking about buying a truck in the coming years, you might be ready to buy a truck. But if you couldn't care less, you just, something's rattling or there's a leak here, you take it over and just hand them, you fill out one of the maintenance forms and you walk away, and they give you another truck and you care less about it. But if you're like, you followed up, they give you another truck because they have loads for you to book and you want to keep making money, but then you're staying in touch with the mechanic shop or the dispatch. Hey, that unit 102 that had that leak there, what was the problem, right? You found out about it. Then you can say, okay, that was this. They may not tell you how much it costs, but when you can analyze and find out, okay, it was whatever the leak was, you can find out, you can phone a couple shops. Hey, if this type of truck had this leak, what would be the estimated repair? Well, probably about 3 hours of shop time, and there's about $500 in parts. So you're looking at probably $1,500. Okay, that gives me an idea. And if you start tracking your fuel, so the idea is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. I want you to write down, if you're a company driver and you want to buy a truck, you make a list. You make 4 columns or squares, but strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So what are the strengths of buying a truck versus, and then what's the weakness of buying a truck, right? So the strengths could be freedom to drive where you want, choose your own truck, etc. Weakness, I'm responsible for the breakdowns. I'm responsible if I don't have freight, right? So there's that right off the hop. So strengths is I get to choose where I get to go with the freight, but what if there is no freight? I'm not getting it. So how do I get it? Right? And then the opportunities are, opportunities can be listed in a lot of ways. Well, with me driving the truck, maybe my kids are young, and because I get to choose the hours, Maybe I'll I can run on weekends because my wife she'll be at home with the kids, and I'm gonna run evenings when my wife is at home, and we're gonna do this crazy schedule for a couple of years. But that opportunity, what that's gonna do is cut down on my daycare because I'm gonna run short. I'm gonna stay at home during the day with the kids, focus on getting night loads. Before I go out, I'm gonna find some way to do this. Right? I'm just putting those opportunities. Now the threats. Well, what's the threat of staying with the company? What is the threat of, so you can, when you do this, you just make the chart. So it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then that's across the top of each column. And on the far left, you put owner operator, and below that, company driver. And you start to list each of them. And then really sit back, tape it up on the wall, write it on a whiteboard, and then grab a cup of coffee and sit back after you've listed, look if you've missed any, and then start to really analyze that. Right. So when you can do that, because that's one of the ending of Jeff's video was the Dean and Sage Sage challenged saying, I challenge any driver to get off the load boards as an owner operator. You still work the spot market without a load board. How many could do it? And then they're like, well, that's unrealistic. That's not. No, that's what happened is the bantering, the message that Sage was trying to say was lost. And the message there is, right now, if there was no load board for you guys to sign in, how do you have enough? If you want to work the spot market, you don't need a load board. Yes, it's easier, 100% easier, because you can just wake up, pick and choose your freight, and away you go. You try to negotiate the best you can, and you just keep moving forward. But the point that Sage was trying to say, you have to build relationships. And they say, well, brokers have time to do all this. Sure. Yeah, I got the time. Let me peel back the curtain of becoming a freight broker. And Steve, you have a little bit of experience on it, and maybe there's others in here that has that. But you want to become a broker. So Monday, you're going to start as a broker. Maybe a broker agent, doesn't matter. If you're a broker agent, is much easier because now you got a mentor. But if you're going to open up your own authority and create a freight brokerage, and that's going to be your sole source of income, well, you're going to be 3 to 5 months before you get one load. And every single day, you got to be cold calling customers and networking. Well, that's not my thing, right? So being a broker is not as easy as it sounds. They say, well, it's so easy and stuff. Yeah, it can be easy depending on what market, where you're coming from, your background. Maybe maybe you were a sales rep in some food distributing company, and you told them that you're switching to become a freight broker, and they liked you. All of a sudden, they're like, "Yeah, give me your card, and we'll give you some freight." That doesn't happen too often, but it can. So, but most you're cold calling.
Well, let me backtrack to your SWOT. So if I do that to myself, back when I bought my first truck, and I kind of did that subconsciously, I guess. My strength was that I've been, to all 48 states, all the 48. I had 6 years of experience. Most people said don't think about buying a truck until you're 5 years into it. I was a great trip planner. I was great. I was great with the customers. I didn't lose. I never got kicked out of a shipper receiver. I never lost my crap, whatever. My weaknesses were I've never dispatched before, and I was told by other Landstar owners that that was your learning curve. And so, the side note to that is when you're talking about being a freight broker, there's that learning curve. There's the learning curve and the sales time that you have to be able to afford that. Well, it's the same thing with drivers as well. Now, where was I going to get my freight? Well, Landstar obviously had this pool. They had this tool, and they had the networking ability and all that, which that was also a learned weakness. In other words, sometimes you don't know what your weaknesses are until you get into the game. It's kind of like weightlifting. You don't know, wow, I didn't realize that I can't lift this, or I didn't realize that I was weak in this area, that kind of thing. So on the T, what's the T stand for?
Threats.
Okay, so the threat. So yeah, we did that too. So my wife and I talked. What's the worst that can happen? Because I'd heard all these stories. A friend of mine told me about how, because of his failure at being a truck owner, They had to repo his house. He had to call his wife and say, hey, we're having to move because we're losing the house, and it's like, I am never wanting to make that phone call. So my wife and I talked about it and said, what's the worst that can happen? They repoed the truck. We're done. I'm never leveraging the house against this. I know people leveraging their houses and their retirements to pay for a truck that's going to fail them, by the time it's done and over with. I've known people that have lost everything because of a damn truck. And I told myself I was never going to be that person. And so I bought a $50,000 truck. And the one thing that I would have done different is, in my research of being an owner operator, would have been to what you said earlier about going into the shop saying, hey, what would this cost? And finding out the cost, the true cost, because everybody just thinks payment and insurance. They don't think about, they might think about maintenance, but they don't think about repair. And they don't realize that a turbo might cost 10 grand. They don't realize that your TPF system could be 15 grand. I mean, that's the thing that Schneider told us in orientation is, hey, if you've got a one box, it's not under warranty, and it's going to be like 15 grand to fix. Back then I think it was like 13. And so those are big, scary numbers for a company driver. So that was one of the things I wish I would have done a little bit better, because I knew where my freight was going to come from. I knew I had my strengths. I was humbled when I learned, when I was learning how to self-dispatch. But the important part is I was able to afford that learning curve. And that's the thing that a lot of the Schneider Finance guys, when they come over to the spot market, is they can't, they're struggling with that big truck payment, but at the same time, they can't afford any mistakes in dispatch. They can't afford to figure out that, that broker tends to, not be honest with the delivery time. They don't know that Target might take 8 hours to unload, because you're not dropping and hooking. They don't realize that, that you've got to book your load over the weekend, because there's not a whole lot of freight that delivers and picks up on a Saturday and Sunday, and then holidays throw people off. So, and if you got a $1,500 a week truck note, there is no room for error. And so sometimes the weakness is people can have the right mindsets, but then their costs are way too high. They went out and bought all the toys when rates are really good, not realizing that the salary, you need to set a salary as an owner op and live off that salary, not, oh, wow, rates are through the roof, so I can afford that new car or whatever. These are learning opportunities, but they will take you out pretty quickly. And there's plenty of, you got no credit, we'll finance a truck for you, at a unreasonable amount, if and they want to give you the pride. They work off your emotion. Oh, you want to be you might own a business, but do you control the business? Sage said that yesterday, I think. But looking at my journey beginning, I did those things subconsciously, and there was still a lot of things that kind of threw me for a loop. I remember the first 3 months I was driving for Landstar, I felt like a rookie all over again. I was making rookie mistakes, like in the driving spectrum. Just learning that. So it was,
well, but somehow
it was
for
a unique
yourself,
situation.
I don't know how it happened for you. I mean, over the journey, I've watched you on YouTube for years, but somehow over time, I think you maintained, despite difficult situations, you always kind of maintained a calm, cool head for the most part, I would say. And somehow that's morphed into you being a safe driver, which then led you to where you started out with like as the safety manager, right? So that's a skill set that you kind of developed over time. I'm not sure exactly when and where, but somehow maybe I know that Schneider is really big on safety and their protocols and procedures and stuff like that. So maybe that helped, but somehow that really fell onto you, on your lap, so to speak, whether it fell on or you focused on it, but somehow that's a strength. That's a huge strength that you bring to, in this case, like trucking right now, but it's just something that happened for you, right?
Well, so as a company driver, after being there for 2 years, they wanted me to become a trainer. I said, hell to the no. And so, well, what if we started you off doing you know, retraining, like for example, like a guy that's been off the road for a couple of years, you know, like my first trainee was actually, they called them refreshers, right? If you had a gap in your driving history, you needed a refresher training, you know, like a few weeks. Or we had a guy that had 20 years driving experience, but it was all day cab stuff, and he was going OTR for the first time. And so I started in that. And so, and I asked my safety department, why would you want me, who's only been driving 2 or 3 years, to be a trainer? Because we're not Swift. We're not one of these companies that makes 6-month, you know, drivers, you know, trainers. And she's like, well, Steve, a lot of these old trainers have never seen a CDL school. You know, they grandfathered in. And you still have the fresh mindset of what it's like of being in a CDL school. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So you can empathize with these drivers a little bit better. And that's when I learned that having empathy for the drivers of what they're going through was very valuable. Like, you know, new guy, you know, and eventually I would get into new drivers, but like I would let them know, okay, your family life is going to change. You're going to come home as a stranger to your home. Your wife's going to have to make decisions without you. You know, that there's going to be this set things that she's going to have to live like a single mom. And, you know, it's like all these mental preparations. And a lot of drivers have come back and told me that that was very valuable because no other trainers were doing that. I wasn't just some jaded old school truck driver that was like, well, just, I don't know why you're doing that. Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like not recognizing the struggle to adjust being on the road. And so I took those skill sets, you know, when it comes to the safety department, you know, and there was a time where I almost left like trucking, and Jeff was like, look, I don't want you to leave because you're a safe driver. And so we talked, and obviously I stayed, but you know, some people bring that up as dirty laundry, and I've put it out there that there was a time where I almost left, and that was partially a lack of communication and partially me. One of my biggest frustrations with my dispatcher, especially the last dispatcher I had at my company, was the lack of communication. And that's a huge problem. Like, you have brokers and drivers that, like, you know, drivers assume that because there's a tracking app that the broker knows what you're doing. And then, you know, Jeff also told the story the other night that you're talking about where, you know, the broker was called, a voicemail was left, and then the broker got mad because they didn't find out till last minute that the truck had to cancel the load. And so, you know, emails get lost, voicemails get lost. You know, you call 90% of the time brokers now, and they're not even answering their phone. You know, you're web chatting with some computer, and that's one of the bad things. Technology has given us the opportunity to communicate, but I remember as a company driver one time I sat all day in Bismarck, North Dakota, and then my dispatcher calls. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, sitting here. He's like, why? Because I don't have a load yet. And all he had to do was turn around and ask the load planner if I had a load yet. And he didn't do that. And I sat all day because of that. Next thing you know, I had a load. Now I was late to pick up the load because of a lack of communication. So the ability to understand that and be able to talk to people and know what you're getting into, the you know, the lack of communication, it's universal. The ability to withstand those hardships is critical for being an own operator, whether you got a dispatcher or whether you're finding your own loads on the spot market. But anyways, the what you said before, that's what gave me my skill set to what I'm doing today, is the ability to empathize with the drivers that were coming out of CDL school, training them safely, and remembering fresh in my mind what it was like to be a new driver. You know, like these spots are difficult to back into. You know, one time I had my Mr. Miyagi moment. I put a trainee in a impossible situation on purpose, and I didn't tell him. He was trying to back between, there were trailers on this side and trailers that he was backing in between, and there wasn't enough swing room, and I wanted him to recognize that. I said, try to get in that spot. After about 8 times, he gets out of the truck, he gets in my face, he's like, you're going to have to tell me how to do this. I said, what's the safest thing to do now? Quit? I'm like, well, kinda. If you can't back in that spot, don't do it. And I gave him an example. I was at a receiver, and they gave me a door that there wasn't enough swing room to get into because there was 2 trailers next to the door. And so after a couple of times, I'm like, man, I'm not damaging anything for this. So I got out. I said, dude, you're going to have to give me another door. All right, put in door 30, whatever it was. And so I got in that door. And as I'm sitting there, a day cab tried to get in this spot. They gave him the door I was supposed to be in. And he actually hit one of the trailers because there wasn't enough swing room for him. And this is a day cab guy that was experienced, you know. And so just recognizing the problem, recognizing your weaknesses, you know, there's an owner operator that's probably watching right now. I don't know if he's the owner operator now, but he asked me, he goes, hey, Steve, I want to be an owner. I want to do this. I said, well, you have money management problems. And until you recognize that and deal with that, you're going to struggle. And sure enough, he's begged for money on YouTube for people. You know, he got mad at me because I didn't loan him money. He never solved that problem and was always hopping companies, never solving the problem, just rearranging. And that's the thing that people need to recognize. When you leave a company to go somewhere else, are you rearranging problems or are you solving a problem? Yes, there are bad companies out there, but maybe it's not the company. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's your operation. Maybe it's your cost. Maybe it's your needs at home that keep you from getting out there, you know, and so everything you're saying does make sense.
Well,
and,
I was gonna say
go
there's a whack of things to unpack there, but the one thing that I was gonna say, see, when Jeff talked about that load canceling deal, some details were left out that we don't know. How much notice were you giving the broker? Was it 48 hours, 24 hours? We don't need to get into it, but the point is, as a broker, if a carrier only left me a voicemail, I'd be disappointed on that carrier, to be honest with you, as far as canceling the load. If you receive yes, leaving a voicemail is good. Oh, emails get lost, but still doing your due diligence that, hey, you send an email to the original email that when the broker sent you the load tender or something that they communicated, just edit the subject line saying have to cancel in capital letters, and then put a note saying, hey, due to whatever, you know, the circumstance, I have to cancel. Especially if there was if the load confirmation had an appointment booked. As a carrier, you got to keep calling and emailing until you reach someone in that company. If they're a bigger company and it's an independent, like my company, like I'm an agent, and you're not getting me for some odd reason, you call the head office and saying, hey, I booked a load with Rob at this location. This is the load number. I can't reach him, but we have to cancel. I want to let him know so he has time to get another carrier under it. That is the responsibility. Once you've accepted that load, and if you're just going to leave this and walk away and not follow up, until you can leave a voicemail, but you got to send that email. You got to get someone to at least acknowledge, okay, received. Thanks for letting me know, or something, until you've received some acknowledgement. Because it's no different than what if a broker did that to you, called you last minute and just left a voicemail, and you're driving all the way there and stuff. At least if they have your text message or way. That's why it's so important that when you're as part of, again, when you own a truck and you're dispatching yourself as an owner operator leased onto a company, or you have your own authority, you have to sit back and think about your standard operating procedures, your SOPs for every situation. And that would be, when you book loads, you leave a message. When you're driving, and if you don't have someone dispatching for you, you have to put a message saying, I am currently driving. If this is an urgent matter, please text and email. Put a text here, because then you'll see the text message pop up. And sometimes like in your cars nowadays, you'll hear it play through the Bluetooth. At least that you tell the brokers when you book a load, hey, if you when I'm driving right now, if you have any urgent, there's a change in an appointment, any changes to the load, please text it, please, or whatever method works for you, whether it's WhatsApp, doesn't really matter. There's 50 ways we can discuss that, but you have to tell the people you're working with what is the most optimum way to communicate, right? And then when you're dealing with a broker, if you're finding that they're difficult to deal with, you have to ask those questions. I realize that there's a lot of them that hide behind this and that. Well, you have to say to them when you actually have a load confirmation and they're sending it to you, that's the time when you've actually, whether through email, however you communicated that you guys agreed on the load, and they sent you a load confirmation and they expect you to click accept or something. However you've communicated that, you ask the broker saying, what is the best way to communicate with you if there's questions, issues on this load? And then they say, oh, well, send me a text or send me a WhatsApp or send me a instant message here or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. The point is you got to just ask those questions. And going back to training, one of the things that we have to be, I put a comment in Jeff's video about this. Other than getting your class 1, right? You have to get trained, go to school, and then do your test to become a class 1 driver. Beyond that, the whole trucking industry, there's courses and people out there that offer it. Hold on one sec here, sorry. There's courses out there, people do things, but there's no formal training, right? There's absolutely zero training other than mentorship. So that's, sorry, I'm just going to cough. It's contagious, Steve. So my point is, if you're being trained, mentored by people, that's fair, but you need to double check. Are they mentoring their bad habits, or are they teaching you long-term skills? And I'll use the example of flatbedding.
Well, how does a new person recognize that, the difference between the two?
Well, I'll use flatbed because flatbed, if you go to your local state and or area that you're in, like in Canada, every province has their own load securement guide that you can download. And there's various different guides out there where they show the standards. And if in doubt, especially I'll use flatbed, if you can't find it, phone the local DOT office and saying, hey, where do I purchase or download the most current load securement requirements for flatbeds? And they say, well, go to this website and download it from there. Okay, so read it. And then just read through that guide, and you may not know it, right? Because it's all kind of new information. But then when you're actually at your company and someone's load securing you, and they're like, when you talked about that you need 2 straps in the first 8 feet, and they're saying you need 2 straps in the first 8 feet, you're like, oh, this guy, yep. And then we need 1 strap per this many feet or this many feet or this much weight. And you're like, I read that. That's matching up. This guy's really good. And if all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I throw 1 strap here, I throw 1 strap there. I'm like, that doesn't seem, I'm going to take a picture of this and I'm going to go back tonight. I'll follow along. It doesn't seem like when I read when I read it myself, it doesn't seem to match up. So I'll just go along and I'm going to go back home and I'm going to look at that. And if what he said doesn't seem to match, red flag, right? Check with others.
Yeah, so that's a little bit more cut and dry, but when it comes to van and reefer, it's harder to differentiate. And and the other thing is like, I got into it with a Covenant recruiter during CDL school because their program at the time was when you were done with your training with the trainer, they made you team with a complete stranger that also just finished training. So you had 2 rookies in the truck, and they thought that was a good idea. And what it was is they were trying to get team freight without,
paying for
paying for a team, and so they try to spin it as oh, you can learn from each other, your weaknesses and your strengths and all that. But the reality is you had 2 scared, fresh CDL students in the same truck with no mentorship whatsoever.
Well, I would say, the way to solve that, to get to the point, is, well, one, As you get in the truck, sure, okay, you're hired by this company and they say, okay, Steve is going to be your trainer for the next 2 weeks. Okay. So day one, you interview each other. And I'm going to ask, if I'm new, I'm a rookie, I'm nervous, but I'm going to ask you some basic questions like how long you've been driving? What's your history? Like how many companies have you been at? And just a couple basic questions. You don't have to ask everything, but enough to get a sense. So that's step one. When he says, yeah, I've been driving for 15 years. And then you just have to watch, and you have to watch them as they're doing their day. See how they communicate to you. Does that resonate with you? And number two, and most is, are they leading by example? Meaning, are they the person, hey, do what I say, but don't do what I do? Versus
my trainer was kind of like that. Luckily,
right?
I knew
so
a little bit
I'm
better.
telling you the proper way is to do this, but then you see this guy swearing, swearing and so forth. But yet he's saying, okay, make sure you always signal, then you do the shoulder check, but then you see him cutting those corners, right? And
so, all right. Chief Freight Hauler has a question. Yeah.
Yep,
Any
I see
advice
that.
for a carrier like me? 5 to 6 months of the year, I run dedicated nursery freight, then broker loads the rest of the year. How do I not lose my personal relationships with brokers?
Well, so if you run, say, let's just keep it simple, 6 months nursery, 6 months spot market. The history that the ones that if you're working with any regular brokers, and you like say right now, okay, you're running your nursery right now, and then it's going to stop. Well, you need to be forthcoming to these brokers saying, hey, for 6 months I have a contract I do, and then I do this. And so you have to, have really good conversations with those brokers that were giving you freight, and find out how it works with them, and then seeing that you're communicating. And then that's first and foremost, because some of them are like, well, okay, that's fine. But obviously it's not great from a broker standpoint, because if they're counting on you, but if they like your service and you explain why you're not available all the time, and they're like, this business goes in ebbs and flows. Like I have a particular carrier in mind where I don't use them for a few months, then all of a sudden I'll get back to backs with that carrier. So I would say the month before that nursery's tapering down, you're reaching out, i.e. go back to the videos I talked about. You're using MailChimp or something similar, constant contact, sending a message out, showing them, hey, send a picture of your truck, remind them, look back when you send that email to those brokers. You can send a mass email. I'll be back in the spot market in a month. And then you can follow up and saying, hey, last year I did 10 loads with you in these lanes. I'll be available starting on this date. Are those lanes still available? What kind of rate are you currently doing? It's not easy. It requires a lot of effort and consistency. So you got to have good records where you can say, yeah, I did 10 loads and I did 8, reach out to each of those and try to, because in the 6 months that you're there, people will change roles, change jobs, leave. And so you want to continually, during that 6 months, utilize the constant contact. And instead, what I would actually, the way to keep engaged is almost like if you did for Cheap Freight Hauler, utilizing MailChimp, where you create a template where you got a list of all the people that you work with. Those 6 months there, you could literally sit down one weekend. If you worked really hard one weekend and make a bunch of blogs, pro tips, how we as drivers help you as brokers, things like loading and unloading, things that like little, it doesn't have to be long, just little quick tips. Hey, did you know for weights? Like if you know that, look at the spot market loads that you do. Say, where do you see opportunities? Taking strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What is the opportunities on those loads you've done in the past? Formulate some educational short blogs, paragraph or two, pro tips that will help some of these brokers that may not realize some of the things and you can make it generalized. And then what you do is you make these blogs, and then each week or once a month or once every, say, even if you did on a 2-week cycle, every 2 weeks on a Monday morning or a Friday morning, whatever day, or Wednesday, you blast out this email every 2 weeks consistently with different pro tips and showing them, hey, this is what happens when shippers don't secure the loads properly and so forth. Different strategies. Make some stuff up that is educational and informational. And then, hey, if there's anything that you're seeing in the industry, that some current changes that are coming forth that may affect brokers that they may not be aware of, remind them, and then make a little bit of a schedule so that 6 months that you're not running for them, you're constantly in their face, in their eyes. They're seeing it. They whatever your emails and your company, they recognize, hey, every Wednesday I'm going to get a pro tip every week, even if they blow it away, but you just keep doing it. And then the month before, you kind of reignite those relationships and hope that by the time nursery tapers off, it just flows right into the spot market. And then as you're working those 6 months, take the time to thank them. Use loom.com, make videos thanking them, show the excellent service that because you only got 6 months, you got to be so good so that they're so thankful that you're back.
I think one of the challenges that cheap freight hauler is going to go through, and he's probably our experiences, is that, like, for example, there are plastic flowers that come out of Bolivar. And, and then, of course, McCormick's got, like, different brokers, like there's a run that I was doing all the time. It was Springfield to Cincinnati. It was a good run. I could spend the night at the receiver, so it was, I can pull it off anytime. And sometimes CH would have it, sometimes Ryan would have it, sometimes, Nolan would have it, and it fluctuated. You could tell when they were, and so a lot of times, the brokers that had the freight that he was doing 6 months ago that may not even have that freight. So, but what I like to do in those kind of situations is I will try, say, hey, do you have an email list? And if they have an email list, you can at least thank them for the list, even though you're not doing their freight. It's like, I don't have the capacity right now. They don't have to know what you're doing. And so it keeps that communication open. So the brokers that do have the more secure freight, the more contract freight, if they're reaching out to you every day, have a reply. Thanks for reaching out. I have nobody at this time. Whenever I email a broker for a load and they actually respond, which is 9 times out of 10 they don't, when they actually do respond and I don't want to do the load or whatever, or the load doesn't work for me, I will tell them, hey, thanks for replying, and I'll give them a reason why we can't do the load. So communication, I think, is the bottom line, keeping that communication open. But it's difficult because, CH is laying off, Coyote's laying off, a lot of these big freight brokerages are laying off agents. So people are changing representatives all the time. I have this deal with Coyote right now. They won't let me log in. And so when I do a password reset, they're supposed to send me a code, and they're not sending me a code. So I contacted my rep, who may or may not be disgruntled because of what's going on at Coyote right now. And I'm like, can you do a password reset? No, I can't do that anymore. So obviously some power has gotten out of his hands. And so it is a challenge for cheap freight hauler. I definitely can identify with that.
But I was going to say, for him, a further advice would be, because if his core business is that nursery, so that's number one, right?
Yeah.
So the 2 or 3 weeks before the nursery season, he may not be able to run the spot market. He needs that truck, tires, checking everything, mud flap arms. You want to mitigate, like, can you predict everything? No. But the 2 to 3 weeks prior to the nursery season kicking up, you have to make sure you've gone through a fine-tooth comb with that truck. You've either yourself or mechanic has been all over. You're checking the wheels, the brakes, every mud flap, so that you want to mitigate as much downtime as you can. Lights, all that stuff, so that you're ready to rock and roll. If you're running hard for 6 months, you're going to have to do the truck's going to need a little bit of maintenance, whether it's just simple oil changes, filters, things of that nature. So you're going to spend 1 or 2 weeks. So now when you start to, again, out of 52 weeks, if 6 months is nursery, you might lose 1 or 2 weeks before that, and you might lose 1 or 2 weeks after that. So again, depends if you're doing all this work yourself or you're getting a shop. If your shop is doing all the work, those 2 weeks after the 6 months, that's your vacation time, right? But during that time, I would say, because you're on the 6 month market, or 6 month spot market, I would be, if I was in his shoes, saying to myself, okay, I got nursery on this half of the season. what is a seasonal product that's only seasonal on the flip side, and something that's an example. I'm not saying it's the choice, but just as an example, the 6 months of these Hall and Nursery, you're forging relationships, finding the people that are running, as an example, Christmas trees. I know it's not the greatest for everyone, but maybe you could make some money from that. I don't know. What is something else that's seasonal that you could capture and utilizing those 6 months so that you're able to go out there and forge relationships? Then you're only using the spot market load boards for a short amount of stuff. And hopefully you can leverage, because maybe through the nursery, and you're showing your consistency, your excellence. Maybe after the season is done, there's a couple more weeks of running around where you're picking up empty carts, hauling them back and forth. Like, I don't know, there's all those little details there, but how you can continue to leverage that. And then also, you don't want to just shut off the nursery and then jump in. You got to, when I say close out, taking the time, I'm not sure, how it all works with his nursery, if he's working directly through brokers or the suppliers, thanking the people. You want to solidify those relationships so that next season you're top of mind. What are you doing throughout that season every single day? And I like what Mr. Charles made. Mr. Charles, cool truck. And that's how he, used the onion season. But I like what Mr. Charles said. I would recommend an assessment quarterly, because you can also find and assess ways to improve. You got to stop always and keep reminding yourself to review what you're doing. Are you on track to where you're going? What skill sets do you need to enhance yourself with, and so forth? But I would say that's, this would take what Sage would say. With cheap freight hauler, the first couple of years, he's going to have to really dig in and build relationships. It could be a combination of brokers and shippers that will fulfill those, I would say, 5 months. And if you're doing 6 months, because you're going to lose a month between, and that's where we I've talked about this before. When we're doing the supply chain or logistics with trucking, every truck can only generate revenue 42 to 44 weeks of the year, because all those trucks are going to call for maintenance throughout the year. You're going to need time off the truck, because not a lot of owner operators go out, buy one truck and say, hey, when I take my 2 weeks vacation, I'm going to hire Steve for those 2 weeks a year. And you're like, yeah, I can do that. I can make that work for that. I'll get, because in theory, someone like yourself, you won't do it. But in theory, when you think about it, someone like yourself who's got lots of trucking experience, that would be a good business decision from a standpoint of keeping revenue in the truck, where you say, you know what, I'm going to be very selective who does it. But this way, the asset that I bought a truck for to make money, I'm going to be very selective. So Steve could make a network, as an example, that he could go out there and who's your other fellow that recently retired? What's his name?
Pale Rider.
Pale Rider. So take Pale Rider. So he retired from his company job, and people know him. And if people liked him, and let's say you had your truck and he connected with five other people or 10 other people on here, and throughout the year, he could come up with 20 weeks of work covering you for 2 weeks, someone else for 2 weeks. And if you liked it, you might refer him to someone else. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying that that's an idea.
Yeah. The government makes that, and insurance makes that next to impossible.
Exactly. I get that. I'm just saying that that's the thought process, right?
Let me address in the closet here. I've never seen a genre make the simplicity of economy 101 supply and demand so complicated. And in the closet, here's the deal, man. I agree with you, but almost everybody that's how YouTube works, right? You want to learn how to work out, you have all these complexities. You want to lose weight, you have all these complexities. And so I try to simplify things for people. It is supply and demand. And what I say is you have to have the right mindset, and you got to be able to withstand any market. And then CDN's got some great strategies on creating the relationships that insulate you from market conditions. And that's kind of what we're about. I've been accused of simplifying too much. And so your comment is valid, but it's not the only genre that it's like, if you want to learn to work out, if you want to learn how to do keto, if you want to learn how to do carnivore, if you want to learn how to do home improvements, there's all these complexities that people, thrive their channels off of. So,
well, because I know we've been on for a while, but the thing that I wanted to also bring up that we haven't had a chance to is when we're utilizing a tool, I'm not saying this is the only thing, but we talked about lots of strategies, but I just wanted to throw out the idea of the SWOT analysis to your situations, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the thing I can't emphasize enough is whatever decision you're going to make, buying a truck, staying with a company, or leasing, or whatever the case is, becoming a broker, freight broker agent, it doesn't matter, right? The whole thing is you got to look at the big picture. It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to make this money here and here. When I say big picture is often, and reason I'm saying this is I'm in the exact same boat that I'm talking about, retirement, right? As we age, there's a time and period where you burn out, right? If you don't take time off or do something different, over time you get complacent and or you burn out. And so you need to set yourself up for your family and yourself. What does you think, well, I'm 30 now, I'll worry about that. Well, guess what? Building a retirement fund, if you're working for a company that they're matching your 401k, and you could turn around and say, well, Rob, I took your strategy and I worked at this company for 15 years and then they closed the doors and now look at me. Yeah, it very well could happen. You took the path of saying, you know what, I'm not going to buy the truck. I'm going to stay. I'm making more money. I'll make more money per year as a company driver where I'm at than not. But just because you're a company driver or an owner operator, because what if you're a company driver, you own a truck, something happens where, you had that one box go. And right after that, you had a turbo go. And right after that, something else go. You needed tires. So now
that would be a hard day.
Right. But I'm saying, like, say in the course of 6 months, the truck calls for more than what you could afford. Like that truck is not, it just cost, it was just a bad truck, combination of things, and you can't afford those payments anymore. So you're like, I got to get rid of this truck and it's not worth a lot. So the point is, we don't know when and where our situation can happen. Like for me, I can lose 5 customers today. Well, am I getting paid? Nope. The only opportunity so the weakness is I'm going to be losing. I'm not making no money. The opportunity is I can forge new customers, right? But what's the threat? The threat in that situation, if I lost half of my business today, so the strengths are is I've got my experience and knowledge in this industry that I can apply. The weakness is I don't know how long it's going to take. So it might have to be 3 to 6. I know in my history, it's 8 to 10 times to 12 touches per contact just to get the opportunity to quote. So it could take 3 to 6 months to regain just the chances my foot in the door. So if I lost half of my business today, it could be a year or more of me working my butt off before I'm able to regain where I was at before. But the opportunity is, it gives me, by me losing those customers, maybe it's an opportunity to forge into other avenues, other customers, other industries that I haven't serviced before. But the threat is that by me losing a year potentially of income, I have to, one, come out with what's my plan. If I don't have freight to move, I'm not making money. So how am I going to overcome that? And obviously, if I'm not making money, that means I'm not putting money into my retirement fund because I don't have a company matching me. So that's going to put my retirement plans back further. And right when you're an independent person, you don't have healthcare. So those are all things that working for a company, if you have the opportunity to get benefits, and you have to look at that and say, well, yeah, the benefits, the retirement all look good, but this is what I want to do, then great, then do that. But if you want to go on your own, just know that you're on your own and you have to look after the big picture. So I like what Mr. Charles says, stopping and assessing. What are you doing? Taking your knowledge, you run for a while. Like when you come out in the spot market, sometimes you don't know what you're going to do at first. So sometimes it is going to be a bit of a crap shot until you figure things out. But once you hone in and focus and learn and be willing to, take advice from someone like yourself in the spot market and how to figure out what's the best way to maximize the revenue of my truck. And, because if you take in someone like yourself or DIY or Jeff, and there's numerous out there that would say, if I was in your shoes based on where you live, this is what I would do, right? There's no right or wrong. It's just that, right? And that's the beauty of this supply chain trucking industry, is there is no right or wrong. We all have the freedom to do what we want. It's just, are you leveraging what your situation is to the best of your abilities? And as long as you're doing that and you're happy, your family's happy, then life is good, right? Life is good that way.
Well, I put his channel, CDN's channel in the chat there in the link if you guys want to check him out. He's got some great knowledge and can give you some insight from the other side. That's the thing. You know, when I had 5 different dispatchers in the 6 years I was at my company, and not because I got rid of them, but because they just had that kind of turnover rate. And so every time we had a new person, I had to learn, you know, the quirks of that new person. And there was one dispatcher, we were starting to butt heads a little bit. So he brought me into the office and showed me what his computer screen looks like, told me the process of what happens, you know, with the loads and all that. And when we did that, we had a better understanding, and it allowed me to understand things from his viewpoint, which made me a better company driver. And reaching out to you and Sage, learning, okay, what's it like for a broker? What are they looking for? What do they need? How can I become a better owner operator if I know what it's like from the broker side, the broker's point of view? It allows me a unique perspective that the person, you know, screaming on the top of the hill for, you know, broker transparency and that brokers are crooks and all that. It gives me an opportunity to get in and form relationships with the people that are willing to do that. Are there crappy brokers? Yes, but there's also crappy carriers that don't communicate, that will lie, that, you know, and you know, so it goes both ways. And understanding that from both sides, I think will enable people to be a more rounded business owner that could allow room for growth and to be able to insulate you from the market issues. You know, like I've always said, keep your costs low enough that if the market turns sour, you're okay. And I still hold true to that. And that's what takes a lot of people out, is like right now, a lot of people are paying their truck or they're paying themselves or not doing both because things are just too high. And I empathize with the people having to pay 10, 12 grand for a turbo now, and how the system wants you to have a truck with a warranty, because that's pretty much one of the few ways you can survive right now. So, you know, but there are people that manage that. You know, I always thought that your sweet spot is a new truck or newer truck with a warranty with a reasonable payment. And that's becoming harder and harder. Peterbilt Steve just posted on Facebook a new truck that was a canceled order, and $299,000 for this custom Pete. You know, and I'm just like, that's insanity. So you got a lot going on. So, but CDN, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in. You've had great insight, and I'm sure I can probably cut this up to like 15 videos if I get the time to do so.
Well, I was going to say the last thing is just remember that I always mention this in terms of working out at the gym. The only limitation you have is your creativity on the type of workout you could generate. And so when you're working with your brokers, and I always talk about thanking them and all that, just like we should do for drivers. But if you are able to, I know that you'll say, well, this broker doesn't communicate, we can't reach them and so forth. I get how hard it is in some cases, but the ones that you can, when you're emailing, hey, after the load is delivered and you got them on the phone and you got their attention for 2 seconds, what's the most difficult load you're working on right now? You know, lane. And also you're like, if you ask that question, you might find out that there's this long haul that they're struggling to cover, because you guys talked about this on, you know, running the short game can be more, better advantage to revenue for a single operator, right? Less mileage. There's a whole bunch of all those benefits for that. But how about this? Take a company like, you know, like trucking or similar, where you're saying, yeah, my drivers don't like running, you know, Seattle to Florida or Texas to New York, but maybe I've got 3 drivers where we could leapfrog this. Maybe we found this deal that we talked to the drivers. I realize that you're going to say, well, all drivers won't come together, but when you're working as an owner operator for a company, just keep your eyes open and be creative in that way, saying, You just have to always be creative. And that's where maybe doing the short haul, all of a sudden you make a connection that you got one truck, but maybe having two trailers where you can spot a trailer, pick up a trailer. I'm not saying that's all easy, but the point is creativity, openness, and thinking, just constantly thinking of how you can be a part of the supply chain, and you will do well.
Yep. Right on, man. Well, thanks for your
Thanks
words,
for your
man.
time.
Thanks for being on here. Everybody go check out CDN Freight Brokers channel. Give a thumbs up if you like this video, and we'll talk to you later, Rob. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Yep, bye. All right, that was CDN Freight Broker. So obviously we're not going to make this a 2-hour feed to go over low board stuff, but let's go over a couple more comments. Chief Freight Hauler, does anyone send things to brokers? I've often thought about sending coffee mugs or pens or things of that nature to some of my more heavily used. Yeah, I know several people that have done that. Amazon gift cards are an easy way to do that. You know, like in a light conversation, go, hey, do you order stuff from Amazon? You know, and you don't even have to make it blatant. You can be like, man, I was ordering this thing from Amazon. It's taking forever. Do you ever order anything from Amazon? Oh yeah, I order Amazon all the time. Like, give that dude a gift card. So, or do that, you know, whatever. But that's a great way. You know, coffee mugs, you know, that kind of thing will helps. Do that for your shippers too. Do that for your mechanics. Like I've been known to bring in Carbolicious, you know, donuts to the shop that was working on my truck, and that helps a little bit, you know, and to the point that the service manager took off $2,000 because he was able to save me money on the labor. So, but just, you know, don't be a butthead. Life will be easier. So, with that being said, I know we didn't talk about 123 low board today, but 48065, if you want to check it out for free, go to 123lowboard.com. Use my code. It gives you 30 days free to check it out. If you're a company driver thinking that you want to be an owner operator and start booking your own freight, look at 123. You don't need an MC number to get on there and look at the rates, look at the tools, and come up with a business plan based around what you see. So with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have a good week. If you're working this weekend, I hope you're profitable. And if you're off this weekend, I hope you enjoy your home time and family, because you don't get those days back. So with that being said, strength for today, hope for tomorrow, aggression turns to screws, and don't be a butthead. Peace.